Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today, and we are back with another Iron Age comic review. We're looking at Kamen America Volume 6. And starting off with the review of the physical item, as before, I really don't have a whole lot to say. It's by API Printing from Iconic Comics. It's good quality print. It's got a really slick hardcover on it. The internal paper is really good. There's nothing to complain about with this construction. It is exactly what I would expect from an Iconic Comics product at this point. If you like that, you know what you're getting. If you have questions about it, trust me, pick one of these up. You will love it. If you've gotten one of these and you don't like this construction, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you're entitled to your opinion. I still think the vast majority of people are going to like this item when they get their hands on it. Artistically, it's really good. It's really good. Tim Lim has really drilled down. He's mastering a wider range of expressions, which I really like to see. This comic has some really serious, heavy moments in it, and I think he does a good job showing us the kind of more nuanced expressions that characters need to have in these slightly more dramatic moments. This isn't Oscar quality acting or anything, but hey, it's very hard to find a comic that has that kind of command of the human expression where you can just splash a face on the page and have that tell the whole story. There are a few out there, no doubt about it, but it is certainly not a knock on the art to say that it's not at that level. We are emphasizing very different parts of the storytelling here, so I'm not bothered by that at all. Again, the expressions are very good for what they need to convey. So all in all, I like the quality of the art. There is one choice in the artistic direction that kind of mystifies me, and I will point it out using actually some concept sketches here. This is more with the artistic design, again, than the actual quality of the art, but I'm going to talk about it because I would like to... I do have questions about what's going on here. So at one point, we see the character Kamen Victory, aka Sylvia Prestige, in her armored form, transforming into her unarmored form. This has been called the Zero Suit Sylvia, after Zero Suit Samus. And I'm not going to find the page, but we actually see Sylvia's armor destroyed and her reduced to her Zero Suit form, which is a pretty neat bit. It reinforces the idea that she is a tech-based character. And I like the fact that it happens, but I am curious about one thing. In the armored form, there is this chest cutout, which is part of the Kamen America Corps suit design. And I don't have a problem with it. I like it. It's a neat little bit. But when she transforms into the Zero Suit version, that cutout closes. It closes. And she's wearing this under this. And we actually see the hole in the cutout in the chest close when she undergoes this transformation. I'm really confused about this choice of visual design. Because not only is her suit being destroyed, it's supposed to be being hijacked by someone with telemechanical powers. So how did that happen? Why did you choose this direction artistically for the Zero Suit if you knew it was going to do this? It's very mysterious. I would have just left the cutout in the Zero Suit because that makes more sense to me, but that's not how they chose to do it. I think it's an artistic misstep because it creates so many questions in my mind, and in the minds of anyone who's paying attention. Why, when all the tech goes offline, does a gap in the suit close? You would think it would open if the tech goes off. I've hammered on this enough. It's a very strange artistic choice in artistic direction, and it does bug me a little bit, as you've probably guessed. There's some really great guest art in here as well. Of course, you can see this cover here. We have a cosplayer cosplaying Kamen America here on the back. Or, no, actually, I think she's, in this one, I think she's cosplaying Sylvia, which is appropriate. We'll get to that in a minute. And then these internal splash pages at the beginning and end of the book are just amazing. They have a very Studio Trigger vibe to them, with that really thick line art and dynamic posing. Very cool stuff. Let's talk about the story. And as usual for these Iron Age reviews, I'm going to give you a brief review, and I'm going to discuss the story very generally, and then I will give a spoiler warning and a critique of some of the other details that I can't speak about in general terms. So, generally speaking, this is a really strong story. I like it for a number of reasons. First of all, for most of this story, our viewpoint is not actually Carly Vander's. And if you're not familiar with the Kamen America franchise, it revolves around Carly, who is this gal here, and she is a normal kid from Oscar, Indiana, who gets superpowers while on a USO tour, and she gets irradiated by a falling satellite, and there's a whole song and dance to it. If you want her backstory, it's really not in this book, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. What is important is that when she was a kid, she had kind of a rival, high school rival slash kid she just didn't really get along with, and that was Sylvia Prestige, the other lady on the cover. And Sylvia and Carly have had a fraught relationship throughout the series. They kind of made peace a couple of volumes ago, but there hasn't always been a good understanding of who Sylvia is and how she got to be in her place in life. And we're getting a lot of that in this book. This also continues the story of the conflict between the Kamen Corps and the Zenon Rangers. I'm never sure if I'm saying that right. I'm not sure if it's Xenon or Zenon. The Zenon Rangers are a kind of Power Rangers knockoff group. They are very much in the Super Sentai genre, if you're familiar with that. If you're not, Power Rangers is the Americanized version of the Super Sentai story. And mysterious robots have been popping up all over the world. And while the Kamen Corps has been dealing with any robots they stumble across or any robots that turn up in the U.S., the Zenon Rangers have been making a show out of fighting them in other places. I'm looking for a good shot of the Zenon Rangers. That's not too spoilery. Unfortunately, we don't have a great one here. We will just go with this shot here. You see a couple of Zenon Rangers. They're not wearing their helmets anywhere in here, but you can see the kind of costumes they have. They're color-coded. And they're very much a sort of worldwide fighting force that's playing on a lot of the same themes as the Kamen Corps, except we know that they are also backed by Nero Lansky, who is a kind of scummy PR guy that Carly has worked with in the past. So in this story, Carly and the Kamen Corps are coming away from a fashion show when Carly's not a superhero. She is a fashion designer. She designs all of their costumes herself, and she kind of uses this as one of the ways she promotes her brand. And as they are leaving this, well, I guess we should really start with the flashback. And there's usually one of these. We see one of our main characters as a child, usually Carly, but in this flashback, it's more focused on Sylvia. And Sylvia, she is in a pretty wealthy family. Her family owns a series of major fishing supply stores, and it's a big business, and it's made it hard for Sylvia to make friends. She thinks Carly is a pretty cool girl. She wants to be friends with her, but never quite manages to make it work. There are personality conflicts in play that I don't think Sylvia really picked up on as a kid. And her focus is on having fun at this stage in her life, which is understandable. She's very young. But it's an interesting contrast to who we know Sylvia to be later in life. Sylvia was very focused on charities, helping other people, improving the world around her. So we can see that something changed between this very young Sylvia that we see here in Volume 6 and the high school age Sylvia we've seen in other flashbacks. she's not quite that globe-trotting socialite, make the world a better place kind of character she was in high school. So that's very interesting as well. We see a lot of Sylvia at this stage in life in this book. There's a total of, I think, 3 flashbacks where we see Sylvia somewhere between the ages of 8 and 10. And we learn something about her family situation as well. By the age she first appears in here, her mother is unfortunately dead. We don't know what happened to Sylvia's birth mother, but her father is ill, and he has a long-term caretaker named Cynthia. And that is the first red flag that went up, that something more than just a glance at Sylvia's past is going on here, because Cynthia Prestige is one of the backers of the Zenon Rangers. And over the course of this story, we begin to see that Cynthia is, in fact, somehow tied into this, and her relationship with Sylvia is going to be tested over the course of this story, because there's going to be trust issues. We don't know if Sylvia knows all of the malicious stuff that the Zenon Rangers are doing. We don't know if Sylvia is going to choose loyalty to her stepmother over loyalty to the Kamen Corps, because clearly she and Cynthia have a very good relationship, unlike the typical stepmother and stepdaughter relationship you see in fiction. So there's a lot of very fascinating, intriguing elements at play here. We don't get all the answers in this volume, but this internal conflict between Sylvia's loyalties and the external conflict between the Kamen Corps and the Zenon Rangers is very well leveraged in the writing of this story. They play off each other very nicely. They set up tense conflicts, but not overly dramatized conflicts. They don't drag out too long. Questions are asked and answered in a pretty reasonable speed. Of course, those answers are not always, actually, I would say, are never the entire story. But it's intriguing, and that's really what you want at this stage in the story. If it follows the pattern of the previous arc, we're going to have 4 volumes total in this story arc. So we're halfway through by the end of this. That is the perfect time to have a lot of questions and a lot of intriguing hints at the answers, which is what we get by the end of this book. Really like that. I like some of the character development in here. I especially like the development of Sigmund, who, as I said in my last review of Volume 5, I felt was in danger of becoming a less interesting character to me. And he was really... every place where there was a landmine he could have stepped on, he dodged it pretty deftly in this book. And I like to see that, because I did like Siggy in the previous volumes, and I'm glad that I can continue to enjoy his time on the page in this one. So great stuff there. One of the other things I really like is we just see good treatment of civilians in this book. When there are people in danger, the Kamen Corps goes out of its way to help them. And some of the civilians, like Siggy, like Carly's parents, are right there. Even though they don't have superpowers, they are still helping to control the situation and keep things under wraps. Except for when Carly's mom is taking photos of the fight. But moms are going to mom, so maybe that's not too shocking. It was a little weird, but it does kind of play into that tongue-in-cheek attitude that the Kamen America franchise has. So all in all, I like that. I like the introduction. Well, not really the introduction, but the expansion of the characters of Marmot Maiden and Iced Tosterone. They are interesting side characters. They don't steal the spotlight ever, which is good. I really think they should be side characters, unless Iced Tosterone is going to, get too much deeper into the evolving love triangles. More on that in a moment. But all in all, I like the deft use of characters in this book. I know I said when I reviewed the big crossover, I felt the characters were accurately depicted, but sometimes felt a little out of place. And that does not happen here. I think there are serious issues with doing wild genre crossovers, and the team of Lim and Pellegrini has handled them fairly well. But a pure genre piece like this, I think, is just going to come off a little bit better than trying to meld something wildly different in tone, like they did in the last crossover. I respect the effort, but I think the team is a little bit on better footing here. And it's not like there aren't crossovers in this. We see a little of the Black Ops team in this story, which is also kind of fun to see. But they're, again, not stealing the spotlight. They're not trying to compete for screen time. They're just there because it makes sense to see them there a little bit. One thing I should add when I'm talking about this volume is that I think this is actually a very serviceable jumping on point. And I was a little skeptical about whether you could continue while going along with continuity. You could continue to have as many viable jumping on points as possible. The crossovers have never, crossovers are rarely great jumping on points, but I always point to the first Avengers movie, which was my jumping on point for the MCU. It served as a very good introduction to that shared universe. And unlike a lot of the other Avengers crossovers, which weren't, the first one handled its characters well with enough intrigue and yet enough plot to keep the story going. So I didn't think too hard about who the characters were. I could instead be enticed into going back and backfilling some of that relationship backstory and individual backstory later. I think that this book accomplishes something very similar by giving us most of the story focused on Sylvia and allowing, Carly and Misha and, the unfolding love triangles there and all that other stuff to be background for her personal struggle. And that makes this book a good jumping on point. We get that really strong character study for Sylvia to intrigue us and draw us through the story. And then all of the backstory and baggage that the other characters bring is there to entice us to go back and look at stories that examine it more thoroughly. Excellent work there. All in all, this is a strong offering. It's not the best Kamen America book. It's not the best Iconics book. I guess I should have said that backwards. It's not the best Iconic book or the best Kamen. But anyways, but it is a very strong story. It works very well. It's a good jumping on point. It has a lot of great character work and a lot of intrigue to offer the reader. All right, that is my general review. If you want to get into the Kamen America franchise, you can buy this book. You'll be up to date with the story, and you'll have some intriguing tidbits to go back and look at later. If you've been following the Kamen America story, you probably already own this, let's be honest. But if you're holding out and you always buy on the Iconic Comics store or something like that, go out and get this. It is well worth the investment. If you're asking yourself, is it better to pick up the Volume 1 Omnibus or read this? I would still pick up the Omnibus because you get more story and you do get a better exposition on a lot of the relationships. The one thing in this book that is very interesting is it does manage to expand on characters' relationships, particularly the love triangle that they started to set up and really explored in Volume 5 in a way that is not particularly intrusive to the story. I enjoy that bit of the soap opera aspect of the story in this, probably a little more than in Volume 5, but I think you did need at least one volume to give that part of the story a little more focus in order to move it forward and explore what that meant for the characters. I think I'm going to hold off commenting on the relationship part of the Kamen America franchise until we get a little bit more on it. I talked a lot about it in the last volume. This services that storyline a little bit, but doesn't really push it forwards. So I'm going to hold off further commentary on that until we have something a little more definitive there taking place. Let's get into spoiler talk. So that's the end of the general review. If you don't want spoilers, if you don't want to hear my minor critiques for this story, and they are pretty minor, then go ahead and dip out. But we are going to talk about some specific details at this point. They are not that many. Let's see. My first issue is when they go to the head of the... I forget what this place is called. But there's a scientist who's been looking into the robots, and they fly in there, and they have an analog camera right there that has analog photographs of the Zenon Rangers directing the robots. And Carly is not like a super intelligent character. She's pretty average. This is kind of dumb. It's kind of dumb to take all of your evidence directly to what you think is the enemy headquarters and assume that you'll get a chance to fairly present it. And of course, that's a bad assumption because Carly doesn't get a chance to fairly present it. Zenon Red just destroys it, which is pretty much what she should have expected to happen. And it bugs me a little bit. And yes, she does get called out on it by Sylvia, but I don't know. This just bugged me. It seems a little out of character for Carly to be this reckless, not reckless, careless is the word I want to use. She made no attempt to back this up. She didn't develop it or make multiple copies or any of this other stuff. It just seems a little out of character, and that did bug me some. On the positive side, Sylvia's interactions with her dad are really great. I like that she has that moment at the beginning where she's playing video games with her dad, and then we see her again as her dad's health is declining, and she's starting to build this relationship with Cynthia. But what really got me was the moment at the end where we see her playing video games with her dad and getting ready to start something new, only to discover that her father has passed. And that was a remarkably effective moment. I did not see that coming. And unfortunately, a lot of times when you include the death of a parent or other mentor figure, it's very easy to see it coming. And also, based on what we had seen from Sylvia so far, we knew her dad really wasn't in the picture. And as soon as I saw that her dad was sick, it was obvious to me that he was not going to survive the book. Or more accurately, that he was already dead. I did not expect us to actually see him pass or to have it happen in this way, to see Sylvia ready to start out on something new, only to realize that along the way, her dad had left her. That was a very, very affecting moment. And I think we saw it because we have to understand how definitive it was to Sylvia. As I said before, in here, she's just a kid who loves playing video games and wants to play with her friends. And we know she totally changed from that personality between the moment we see her, the times we see her here, and the times we see her in a high school. Showing us that inflection moment and constructing it that way really, really drove home everything that probably happened in that transformation. And we really don't need to see any more of it than that. I expected there to be more talk about what changed Sylvia from the character she was, in middle school and late elementary school into the very different character she was in high school. I don't think we need to see that anymore. We may still see that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But this was remarkably effective in driving home all the all the different factors that could possibly have changed Sylvia. And I don't think we need to see any more of it. I don't have a problem. Again, I don't have a problem if we do see more of it. But that was really effective, condensed, and meaningful storytelling executed right there. Very glad to see it. The end here is just another hint at the Punchline crossover. We saw that previously at the end of the last crossover book. I think Punchline will be a better crossover in terms of overall tone and vibe than the Soul Finder one. Again, I don't have a problem with the Soul Finder one. It's just adding Father Redder to the story did not do, I think, as much for the story as putting in, another superhero or something like that. And I think that's not because Father Redder couldn't gel with the Black Ops team or the Kamen America team. I think it's because he really didn't get a chance to use his specialty in that story, which is, of course, dealing with possession and with the unholy. So the fact that Versema from Punchline is just an all-purpose superhero makes her something easier to slot into a Kamen America-style story. So I am looking forward to that, and all in all, I am very pleased with what we got here in Volume 6. I don't have like a complete, tier system for the Iconic Comics titles set up. That might be something worth doing at some point. Let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that. But I would call this an A-rank story. This is really good, solid, serviceable work. And it really makes me want to read the next volume because there is so many questions that have that need answers and have intriguing teases of answers set up in this book. Great work, as usual, by Lim and Pellegrini. And I love to see all the guest artists and enthusiasm that is going into it. And I hope to continue to see it going forward. That's what I got for you today. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's a like button and a subscribe button down there. You can use those as you see fit. And I'll talk to you later.